At the heart of the AI server, the line between the GPU and memory is quietly starting to move. The next-generation HBM strategies Samsung and SK hynix showed at Hot Chips aren't just another round of the performance race. I see them as a turning point that redraws the industry map around one question: how far into the brain can memory go? Hello everyone, I'm Ty, with 31 years in the semiconductor industry. Today, I'll break down the next-generation HBM strategies Samsung and SK hynix presented at Hot Chips 2026. By the end of this video, you'll understand why the two companies are heading in opposite directions and how custom HBM is about to change the basic rules of the memory business. As usual, let's start with an analogy. Picture a busy restaurant and the ingredient warehouse next door. The warehouse's job used to be simple: store the ingredients, and when an order comes in, hand them to the chef through a service window in the wall between them. All the cooking happens in the kitchen. The warehouse just passes things through, quietly. But the dishes kept getting more elaborate, and the amount of ingredients used in a single plate exploded. That turned the service window into the problem. They'd like to add more windows, but the wall between the kitchen and the warehouse is only so wide. The chef ends up spending more time receiving ingredients than cooking, and all that stove power sits idle. So the warehouse came back with two proposals. The first, rebuild the window into something smaller and more efficient, and use the freed-up wall space for a prep counter. If the peeling and the measuring get done on the warehouse side, the chef can focus on finishing the dish. This warehouse is even thinking about remodeling itself to fit the menu of its biggest, most loyal restaurant. The second, keep the height of the building as it is, but rebuild the shelves thinner so you can fit more levels and raise total storage. Pack the shelves that tightly, though, and heat builds up. So for the shelves that tend to run hot, you build airflow paths in advance. Now let's look at how this cartoon version is actually playing out on the factory floor. At Hot Chips 2026, Samsung and SK hynix presented different technical strategies for next-generation HBM. The shared backdrop is how hard it has become to keep increasing HBM bandwidth. The area for the TSVs and the PHYs, the gateways the data flows through, can't grow without limit, and brute force expansion by simply adding more of them is running out of room. Samsung's focus is on making the HBM base die far more capable. That foundation normally just handles data transfer and power management between the DRAM and the GPU. Samsung wants to evolve it into an active logic die, closer to an SoC. With custom HBM, functions are built in to match a customer's GPU or NPU, and the longer-term vision is moving part of the AI computation itself into memory. So where does the area for all of that come from? Samsung proposed replacing the conventional with a small die-to-die interface and spending the area that frees up on logic functions. In our analogy, rebuild the service window into something more efficient and put a prep counter along the stretch of wall you just freed up. SK hynix, on the other hand, put packaging technology front and center. For stacks above 20 layers, it is researching hybrid bonding, which joins metal electrodes directly to each other without bumps in between. Removing the bumps buys headroom in height, so within a fixed package thickness, the company says it may be able to add layers without thinning the dies too much. SK hynix is also developing a local cooling technology it calls iHBM. It embeds thermally conductive material in the areas inside the HBM that heat up most, pulling heat away from the hotspots. That's the warehouse's second proposal: thinner shelves, more levels, and airflow paths where the heat collects. Note that mass production of these next-generation technologies is expected no earlier than 2028 for both companies. Now to the main point. When I first heard custom HBM, my reaction was skepticism. Memory's real strength has always been selling the same die to many manufacturers and driving costs down through high-volume, general-purpose production. If you widen custom work to 10 or 20 customers, each one adding design, masks, and validation, that should be a painful business. But once you look at the volume per customer, the picture changes. If you're building dedicated parts for NVIDIA, Google, and a handful of others, the math can work. When a single customer consumes that much, sticking to general-purpose parts may actually be the inefficient choice. Custom HBM isn't a service for everyone. The way I read it, it's effectively a business aimed at the top 2 or 3. So, what moves first? I think it's the memory controller. Samsung's custom HBM isn't just customer-specific memory. The plan is to move the controller that used to sit on the XPU side into the HBM base die, and then gradually pull in RAS, sensors, and eventually compute elements as well. Which means the essence of custom HBM isn't customizing the memory. It's redesigning the XPU and the HBM as a single system. If you can finish some of the processing right next to the memory, you cut the traffic between dies, and you may lower power and heat along with it. The boundary itself between GPU and HBM is being redrawn. Once that boundary moves, how you think about yield changes too. What matters isn't the HBM on its own, but the final product. XPU, HBM, interposer, and package together. A defect found after stacking expensive HBM is a costly loss, and the further AI goes, the more what does it cost to get one good finished unit matters more than the yield of each individual die. There are walls, of course. The most symbolic one is a height of 775 micrometers. HBM4 caps package thickness at 775 micrometers, and stacking 20 or more layers inside that means making the dies and the bonds thinner still. Hybrid bonding is the way through, but SK hynix itself says it won't make it in time for HBM4E, HBM5 at the earliest. And Samsung's roadmap doesn't stop at custom HBM. It goes on to aHBM, which brings compute elements in, and then to zHBM, which drops the interposer entirely and stacks the XPU and the DRAM vertically. By Samsung's own estimate, zHBM would improve power efficiency by 70% and increase DRAM bandwidth by 230%. At that point, it isn't even a question of where you draw the boundary. It's a future where the boundary disappears. To sum up, I don't think custom HBM will replace all HBM. But for the customers with the largest volumes, the inefficiency of staying with general-purpose parts may end up being the bigger cost. HBM is starting to shift from being just fast memory into being part of the AI processor itself. What I find most interesting about the competition from HBM5 onward isn't the numbers for speed or layer count. It's the contest of design philosophy. How far do you co-design the dies as one? And can the boundary really be erased in the end? The warehouse has started doing the prep work. Will the day come when the wall to the kitchen comes down? I want to keep watching this turning point and how much of the brain the memory makers end up owning. That's all for today. I'll keep bringing you semiconductor news and analysis. So if you found this useful, please like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. This has been Ty on Semiconductor News Decoded.